My name is Emily Thorne. I'm 28. Last Tuesday at 2:47 p.m., I was standing in my own kitchen while my mother-in-law, Patricia Hayes, screamed 6 inches from my face that I'd killed her son, and my husband David stood behind her nodding like I was the villain in this nightmare. You selfish, heartless witch! Patricia's perfectly manicured finger jabbed toward my chest. My David is in the hospital because of your reckless driving, and you have the audacity to stand here making excuses? I wasn't driving, I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. David was behind the wheel when the brakes failed. I was in the passenger seat. The police report confirms. Don't! David cut me off, his face twisted in disgust. Don't you dare try to rewrite what happened. You insisted on taking that route. You distracted me. I nearly died too, I said quietly. The airbag deployment fractured 2 of my ribs. I have the x-rays. Poor Emily, Patricia sneered. Always the victim. Meanwhile, my son has a concussion and whiplash because you couldn't keep your mouth shut for 5 minutes during his drive. I looked at David, my husband of 3 years, the man who'd proposed to me on a beach in Santorini and promised to protect me forever. He wouldn't meet my eyes. David, I said, tell her the truth. Tell her what the mechanic said about the brake line. His jaw clenched. The mechanic said it could have been normal wear and tear. He said it looked deliberately cut. Patricia gasped like I'd slapped her. Are you actually accusing someone of trying to hurt my son? Are you that desperate for attention, Emily? Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. My father-in-law, Mr. Hayes, stepped forward from where he'd been watching by the doorway. Emily, this conspiracy theory behavior is exactly what concerns us. You've been erratic lately, missing family dinners, distracted at company meetings. David mentioned you've been paranoid about financial records. I'm the CEO of Thorne Group, I said. Reviewing financial records is literally my job. A job you inherited from your parents, Patricia said smoothly, not one you earned. And frankly, the board has concerns about your recent performance. Something cold settled in my stomach. What board concerns? I just delivered our highest quarterly profit in 8 years. Numbers can be manipulated, Emily, Mr. Hayes said. We're simply suggesting that perhaps the stress is too much. David could help shoulder the burden. He is your husband, after all. I looked between the 3 of them, Patricia's perfectly sympathetic expression, Mr. Hayes's paternal concern, David's studied neutrality. You want me to give David control of my company, I said slowly. Not control, David said quickly. Partnership, like a real marriage. We've been married 3 years. You've never wanted to be involved in Thorne Group before. Because you've never needed me before, he said, and there was something sharp underneath his wounded tone. But Emily, you're spiraling. This accident, these accusations, the paranoia. Mom and Dad are just trying to help. I pressed my palm against the cool granite counter. My ribs ached where the seatbelt had caught me during the crash. 23 hours ago, I'd been trapped in crumpled metal while David climbed out of the driver's side with barely a scratch. The paramedic had said I was lucky. 6 inches to the left, and the passenger door would have taken the full impact of the guardrail. I'd like you all to leave now, I said. Patricia's eyes widened. Emily, we're family. Please leave my house. The silence that followed felt like shattered glass. David stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then his expression hardened into something I didn't recognize. This is our house, Emily, he said quietly. Don't forget that. They left. I stood in that kitchen for 12 minutes after the door closed, counting my heartbeats, waiting for my hands to stop shaking. Let me take you back 4 years to when I thought I knew what love looked like. I was 24, working as a designer for Thorne Group, the company my parents had built from nothing into a mid-sized architectural firm specializing in sustainable commercial buildings. I was sketching concept art for a client presentation when David Hayes walked into our office for an interview with the hiring manager. He had this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Dark hair, designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and an easy confidence that filled spaces. "You must be Emily Thorne," he said, extending his hand. "I've heard about your work on the Riverside project. Impressive for someone so young." "Thank you," I managed, hyper aware that I had charcoal smudges on my fingers. He didn't get the job. "Budget cuts," the hiring manager said. But 3 days later, David showed up at my favorite coffee shop on Morrison Street, the one with the hand-painted ceramic mugs and the owner who knew everyone's order. "Coincidence," he'd said, grinning. "I swear." It wasn't. He'd asked around, found out where I spent my Tuesday mornings. Later, I'd think that was romantic. Now I know it was research. We dated for 8 months. He was attentive, thoughtful, always knew exactly what to say. When my father died suddenly of a heart attack, David was the one who held me through the funeral. When my mother followed 6 months later, grief, the doctor said, though I think it was a broken heart, David proposed the same week. "Let me take care of you," he'd whispered. "You don't have to do this alone." I said yes. I was 25, orphaned, and terrified of being abandoned again. I didn't see that I was handing him the keys to everything my parents had built. The wedding was small. David's parents paid for most of it. They insisted, said it was tradition, said I had enough to worry about taking over as CEO of Thorn Group. Patricia had been warm then, called me daughter, said how happy she was that David had found someone so accomplished. "Just don't work too hard, darling," she'd said at the rehearsal dinner, squeezing my hand. "Remember, a company can be rebuilt. A marriage requires daily care." I thought it was sweet advice. Now, standing in my kitchen with bruised ribs and a husband who'd just threatened me, I understood it differently. A company can be rebuilt, but only if you survive long enough to try. I pulled out my phone and called my insurance agent. "Hi, Marcus, it's Emily Thorne. I need to ask you something about my life insurance policy." "Of course, Emily. Of course. What can I help you with?" "My husband called you last week about increasing my coverage, correct?" Pause. "Yes, he did. We discussed raising it from 10 million to 50 million. He said you'd both agreed it made sense given the company's growth and your new responsibilities as CEO. My throat went dry. "And when did he submit the application?" "Let me check. Here we are. Application submitted March 3rd. That would be 9 days before your car accident." 9 days. I thanked Marcus and hung up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were perfectly steady as I opened my laptop and accessed Thorn Group's financial database. The one only I had admin access to. The one David had been asking about for months. I started searching for irregularities. It took 47 minutes to find the first one. A wire transfer for $127,000 to an LLC I didn't recognize. I dug deeper. More transfers. Different amounts. All routed through shell companies, all authorized with a digital signature that looked like mine but had slightly different timestamp metadata. Someone had been embezzling from my company. Someone with access to internal systems. Someone who knew enough about my schedule to forge authorizations when I was in meetings or off-site. I pulled up the incorporation documents for the LLCs. Most were registered to addresses I didn't know. But one, Scarlet Consulting Services, listed an address on Parkview Avenue. I knew that street. David's gym was on Parkview Avenue. I created a new folder on my personal cloud storage and started copying files. Financial records, board minutes, email chains I'd thought were routine, but now read differently. Every piece of evidence I could find that something was deeply, terribly wrong. At 11:34 p.m., my phone buzzed. Text from David. "Coming home late? Don't wait up." I didn't respond. I kept working. By 2 a.m., I had a timeline. The embezzlement had started 18 months ago, right after David convinced me to give him access to the building as my spouse for emergencies. Small amounts at first, then larger. Nearly $10 million total. siphoned off through fake vendor contracts and inflated consulting fees. I should have been exhausted. Instead, I felt eerily calm, like something had clicked into place. This wasn't about love gone wrong. This was about money, my company, my parents' legacy. And if the brake line really had been cut, it was about my life. I called the police non-emergency line at 6:14 a.m. and asked to speak to someone about a traffic accident investigation. They transferred me to Detective Sarah Reeves. "Ms. Thorne?" Detective Reeves said when I explained why I was calling. "I reviewed the accident report. The initial assessment was inconclusive about the brake failure cause. Why do you think it was deliberate?" "Because my husband increased my life insurance to $50 million 9 days before the crash. Because someone's been embezzling from my company for 18 months. Because I'm starting to think I wasn't supposed to survive Tuesday." Silence. Then, "I'd like you to come to the station. Today. Bring any documentation you have." I went. I brought everything. Detective Reeves was in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair. She listened to my entire story without interrupting, making notes in a worn leather notebook. "This is serious," she said finally. "But I have to be honest. Financial fraud and attempted murder are very different crimes. We'd need concrete evidence linking your husband to the brake tampering." "What about the mechanic's report?" "It says the brake line showed signs of potential tampering, but the mechanic couldn't definitively rule out normal wear. A good defense attorney would tear that apart." She tapped her pen against her notebook. "However, the insurance policy timing is suspicious. And if you're right about the embezzlement, that establishes financial motive. So what do I do?" "Document everything. Don't let your husband know you're investigating. If he thinks you're on to him, he might escalate or destroy evidence." She slid a business card across the desk. "Call me if anything changes. Anything at all." I left the police station feeling both validated and terrified. Someone believed me, but belief wasn't proof. When I got home at 10:23 a.m., David was in the living room with Scarlett Jones. I recognized her from the company holiday party 6 months ago. Stunning, mid-30s, worked in business consulting, according to her LinkedIn. She was sitting on my couch, coffee mug in hand, laughing at something David had said. They both froze when I walked in. "Emily," David stood quickly. "I didn't expect you back so soon. Scarlett and I were just discussing a potential consulting contract for Thorne Group." "Through Scarlett Consulting Services?" I asked. "The LLC registered on Parkview Avenue?" Scarlett's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in her eyes. "That's right. David mentioned you might need help with operational efficiency." "I'm the CEO," I said. "I don't recall authorizing any new consulting contracts." "It was going to be a surprise," David said smoothly. "An anniversary gift. 3 years next month, remember? I wanted to take some of the pressure off your shoulders." How thoughtful. I set my bag down carefully. "Scarlett, would you mind giving David and me a moment alone?" "Of course." She stood, collected her things with practiced grace. "David, we'll talk later." After she left, David turned to me with an expression of wounded confusion. "What was that about? You embarrassed her. And me." "Scarlett Consulting Services has received $1.3 million from Thorne Group over the past 18 months, I said, "for services I never approved. Want to explain that?" His face went carefully blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I pulled the financial records. Your digital signature is on the authorization forms." "Then there's been a mistake. Or—" He paused, and I saw him recalculate. "Emily, are you accusing me of fraud? After everything we've been through this week?" "I'm asking for an explanation." "I don't have one because I didn't authorize anything." His voice rose. "This is exactly what Mom warned me about. The paranoia, the accusations. You're not well, Emily." There it was again, that phrase, not well. "I'm perfectly well," I said quietly. Then why are you making up conspiracy theories instead of recovering from a traumatic accident? Why are you pushing away everyone who cares about you? Because someone cut the brake line on our car, David. Someone who stood to gain $50 million if I died. The words hung in the air between us. For just a second, maybe half a second, I saw something cross his face. Not surprise, not confusion, recognition. Then it was gone, replaced by shock and hurt. You think I tried to kill you? Emily, my God, that's insane. Is it? Yes. He ran his hands through his hair, the picture of a man at the end of his rope. I'm calling Dr. Peterson. You need to talk to someone professional. This isn't normal grief or stress anymore. This is. Don't, I said. Don't you dare try to gaslight me into thinking I'm crazy. I'm trying to help you. Then explain the money. Explain Scarlett. Explain why you increased my life insurance right before the accident. The insurance was financial planning. We discussed it. We never discussed it. We did. You just don't remember because you've been so distracted with work. He was shouting now, red-faced. Nothing like the calm, collected man I'd married. I can't do this anymore, Emily. I can't watch you self-destruct and take me down with you. Then leave. This is my house too. It's my house. My parents left it to me. You moved in after we got married. His expression turned cold. Check the property deed, Emily. You put my name on it last year, remember? You said you wanted us to be equal partners in everything. I did remember. He'd suggested it during a romantic weekend away, said it would show I trusted him. I'd signed the papers without thinking twice. I want you out, I said. Not happening, but I'll give you space to calm down. He grabbed his keys. I'm staying at my parents' place. When you're ready to apologize and get help, call me. He left. I stood in my living room, my parents' living room, and felt the walls closing in. That's when I started keeping a journal. Not a diary. Evidence. I documented every conversation, every suspicious transaction, every time David or his parents said something that didn't add up. I saved voicemails, screenshot text messages, backed up everything to 3 separate cloud accounts. I also hired a private investigator named Marcus Chen, former FBI, now ran his own firm specializing in financial crimes and infidelity cases. I need to know if my husband is trying to kill me, I told him during our first meeting, and I need proof that will hold up in court. Marcus didn't blink. Let's start with surveillance. Over the next 3 weeks, I lived in a strange state of hypervigilance. I went to work at Thorn Group, held meetings, reviewed contracts, smiled at my employees. I pretended everything was normal while quietly securing my assets and gathering evidence. David called every few days. Called. Sometimes apologetic, sometimes cold. His parents called too, urging me to seek help and stop this vendetta. We're worried about you, dear, Patricia said during one call. This obsession with conspiracy theories is unhealthy. David loves you, we all love you, but you're pushing us away with these paranoid delusions. They're not delusions if they're true, I said. Oh, Emily, she sighed, heavy with maternal disappointment. I had such hopes for you and David, but if you're determined to destroy your marriage over imagined slights. I hung up. Marcus called me on a Thursday evening. I've got something. Can you meet? We met at a coffee shop on the east side of town, nowhere near my usual spots. Marcus slid a folder across the table. David and Scarlett have been seeing each other for at least 2 years, he said. Probably longer. They're careful but not careful enough. Hotel receipts, dinner reservations, a lease agreement for an apartment on Riverside Drive, under her name, that he's been paying for. I opened the folder. Photos of David and Scarlett together, laughing, kissing, entering her apartment building, time-stamped and dated. There's more, Marcus said. I found the mechanic who originally inspected your brake line after the accident. He's willing to testify that the damage was consistent with deliberate cutting, not wear and tear. He noted it in his initial report, but someone, he suspects the insurance adjuster, pressured him to change his conclusion. Why would he do that? Because the adjuster was hired by the insurance company David purchased your $50 million policy through, a company his father has connections with. The pieces were falling into place, not a simple affair, a conspiracy. Can you prove the embezzlement? I asked. Working on it. But I have enough to show a pattern. And Emily? Marcus hesitated. I found something else. David and Scarlett incorporated a new LLC 3 weeks ago, Thorn Acquisitions Group, almost identical name to your company. Why would they? Then I understood. They're planning to take over Thorn Group, or destroy it and rebuild under their own name. Either way, they need you out of the picture, preferably dead given the insurance payout. But discredited and institutionalized would work too. That word, institutionalized. That's why they keep saying I'm paranoid, I said slowly. They're building a case that I'm mentally unstable, so when they try to have me committed, no one will question it, Marcus finished. Your husband and in-laws, all concerned for your welfare, medical records showing erratic behavior. And if you're declared incompetent, David would have legal control over your assets and company as your spouse. I felt sick. How do we stop them? We gather every piece of evidence we can. Financial records, surveillance footage, witness testimony. Then we go public in a way they can't contain or spin. He leaned forward. But Emily, you need to be prepared. This is going to get ugly. They're going to fight back hard. Let them, I said. I'm done being quiet. The next public humiliation came exactly 1 week later. I was at Thorn Group's main office, meeting with our design team about a new sustainable housing project, when Patricia Hayes walked into the conference room unannounced. Emily, darling, we need to talk, she said, her voice dripping with concern. I stood. Mrs. Hayes, this is a private business meeting. It's about David. He's devastated, Emily. Absolutely devastated by your accusations and refusal to communicate. She looked around at my 6 employees, all frozen in their seats. I'm sorry to interrupt your work, everyone, but sometimes family emergencies can't wait. This isn't an emergency, I said quietly. Please leave. I will, as soon as you agree to meet with Dr. Peterson. Just one session, Emily, for David's peace of mind. He's so worried about you. My lead designer, Jennifer Park, shifted uncomfortably. The junior architect, Tom Bradley, stared at his laptop like he wished he could disappear. My mental health is not up for discussion in my workplace, I said. But that's just it, dear. When you're struggling like this, you don't always know what's best. David showed me some of the messages you've been sending him, the accusations, the paranoia about money. It's classic stress-induced psychosis. She said it so sympathetically, so motherly, every word designed to make me sound unstable and her sound reasonable. I could feel my team watching, judging, wondering if maybe there was something to what she was saying. Something hardened inside me, something that had been bending finally snapped straight. You have 30 seconds to leave this building, I said, my voice calm and cold. Or I will call security and have you removed for trespassing. Patricia's eyes widened. Emily, I'm trying to help. 20 seconds. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This irrational hostility. 10 seconds. I picked up my office phone. Patricia's expression flickered between shock and calculation. Then she straightened, smoothed her designer's skirt, and smiled sadly at my team. I'm sorry you all have to witness this, she said. Emily is going through something very difficult, and she's taking it out on the people who love her most. I'll be praying for her. She left. The room was silent. Meeting's over, I said. Jennifer, send me the revised blueprints by end of day. Tom, follow up with the contractor about the timeline. Everyone else, back to your regular tasks. They filed out quickly, avoiding eye contact. I sat alone in that conference room and let myself shake for exactly 5 minutes. Then I called Marcus. They're escalating, I said. Patricia just tried to make me look unstable in front of my entire design team. Good, Marcus said. That means they're getting desperate. People don't escalate unless they're worried. What do we have so far? Enough to prove the affair. Enough to raise serious questions about the embezzlement and insurance fraud. The brake line tampering is harder, still circumstantial. But I'm working on getting the security footage from the parking garage where your car was stored the night before the accident. How long? Another week, maybe 2. Can you hold on that long? I thought about Patricia's performance, David's cold distance, the way my own employees had looked at me, like maybe I really was losing it. I don't have a choice, I said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conference room scene, the way Patricia had weaponized concern, the way my team had absorbed her narrative without question. At 3:47 a.m., I got up and reviewed the financial records again. There had to be something I'd missed, some proof so clear it couldn't be denied. I found it in an archived email folder I'd forgotten existed. A message from David to Scarlett, sent 8 months ago from his personal email to what he thought was her personal account, but he'd accidentally CC'd an old Thorn Group admin address that forwarded to my archive. Subject, Phase 3. S. Everything's on track. Talk to Dad about the insurance angles. He says $50 million is doable if we time it right. E's been complaining about the car's handling anyway, so brake failure will look organic. Worst case, if she survives but gets injured enough, we can pursue the incompetency angle. Either way, Thorn Group is ours by year end. I'll make sure she signs the updated will before we execute. Love you. D. I read it 7 times. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. This was it. Premeditation. Murder conspiracy. In writing, I forwarded the email to Marcus, Detective Reeves, and my personal lawyer, Michael Torres, a man my father had trusted, who'd been watching the situation unfold with growing alarm. Michael called me at 4:02 a.m. Emily, this email is admissible evidence, he said, his voice rough with sleep and adrenaline. This is attempted murder conspiracy. We need to move now. What do we do? First, we file a protective order. Then we freeze all joint assets. Then we turn this over to the DA's office. And Emily? He paused. You need to be somewhere safe. If David realizes you have this email... I'm not running, I said. I'm not hiding. They wanted to make me look crazy. Let's see how they spin this. Emily, I'm the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, Michael. I have resources, I have evidence, and I have witnesses now. It's time to stop being the victim. Over the next 10 days, we built our case like architects building a foundation, every document triple-checked, every witness statement notarized. Marcus got the parking garage footage, grainy, but clear enough to show someone matching David's build entering the garage at 11:47 p.m. the night before the accident and leaving 23 minutes later. Detective Reeves brought in the DA. The DA brought in federal investigators for the embezzlement charges. The investigators brought in forensic accountants. The trap was set. Now we just needed the right moment to spring it. David provided it himself. On April 18th, exactly 4 weeks after the car accident, I received a letter from Patricia and Mr. Hayes' attorney. They were filing for an emergency psychiatric evaluation on my behalf, citing erratic behavior, paranoid delusions, and refusal to seek treatment. The hearing was scheduled for April 25th, 1 week. They're trying to get you declared incompetent before you can act, Michael said. But they've made a mistake. This hearing is public record. We can use it. How? He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. By inviting everyone. We planned it like a military operation. Michael filed a counter-motion requesting the hearing be held at the county courthouse instead of a closed psychiatric facility. He cited my right to public proceedings and my concern about conflict of interest, given that Dr. Peterson, the psychiatrist they'd recommended, was a personal friend of the Hayes family. The judge agreed. Then we sent invitations. Not just to the press, though yes, we contacted every major outlet in the city. but also to Thorn Group's board of directors, to my employees, to business partners, to everyone who'd watched Patricia's concerned mother act and wondered if maybe I really was unstable. "You're going to tell your story," Michael said. "All of it. In open court, under oath, with evidence to back up every claim, and we're going to make sure the Hayes family can't control the narrative anymore." April 25th arrived cold and clear. I wore a navy suit my mother had bought me when I made CEO. Professional, composed, nothing like the unhinged woman Patricia had been describing. The courthouse steps were packed. News cameras, reporters. I saw board members from Thorn Group. I saw Jennifer and Tom from my design team. I saw faces I recognized from the business community. And I saw Patricia and Mr. Hayes flanked by their attorney, looking supremely confident. David wasn't there. "Work commitment," Patricia told a reporter. "This is so painful for him." We entered the courthouse. The hearing room was standing room only. Judge Catherine Morrison presided, a woman known for her no-nonsense approach and intolerance for manipulation. Patricia's attorney went first. He painted a picture of a young woman crumbling under pressure, the tragic loss of her parents, the weight of running a company, the paranoid accusations against her devoted husband, the refusal to accept help. "Oh, Ms. Thorne needs intervention, Your Honor," he concluded, "for her own safety and the safety of others. Her husband and in-laws are here today out of love, asking this court to mandate the treatment she's been refusing." Judge Morrison turned to me. "Ms. Thorne, you have the right to respond." I stood. Michael nodded. "Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that this petition is not about my mental health. It's about covering up attempted murder, insurance fraud, and embezzlement." The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison's gavel cracked like a gunshot. "Order, Miss Thorne, those are serious allegations." "I have serious evidence, Your Honor." Michael stepped forward. "Your Honor, we'd like to enter into the record several documents. First, an email from David Hayes to Scarlett Jones outlining a plan to murder Ms. Thorne for insurance money and steal her company. Second, financial records showing systematic embezzlement of approximately $10 million from Thorne Group. Third, surveillance footage showing David Hayes accessing Ms. Thorne's vehicle the night before a brake failure that nearly killed her. Fourth, testimony from a certified mechanic stating the brake line was deliberately cut. And fifth, a fraudulent life insurance policy for $50 million taken out by David Hayes without Ms. Thorne's knowledge. Patricia went white. Her attorney looked like he'd been slapped. "Your Honor, these claims are— this is a psychiatric evaluation hearing, not a criminal trial." "Your Honor," I said quietly, "I'm not paranoid. I'm a target. There's a difference." Judge Morrison looked at the documents Michael was handing to her clerk. Her expression was unreadable. "I'm going to take a 30-minute recess to review these materials," she said. "No one leaves this courtroom." Those 30 minutes felt like hours. I sat next to Michael, hands folded, watching Patricia whisper urgently to her attorney, watching board members exchange shocked glances, watching reporters frantically typing on their phones. When Judge Morrison returned, her face was grim. "Having reviewed the evidence presented, I am denying the petition for emergency psychiatric evaluation. Furthermore, I am ordering these documents to be forwarded to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation." She looked at Patricia and Mr. Hayes. "I'm also recommending the DA investigate whether this petition was filed in bad faith as part of a conspiracy to defraud Ms. Thorne." Patricia stood. "Your Honor, I don't understand. We're here because we're concerned about Emily's welfare." "Save it for your criminal attorney, Mrs. Hayes." Judge Morrison's voice was ice. "This hearing is adjourned." The courtroom exploded. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. I saw Jennifer from my design team staring at me with wide eyes, not judgment, but shock and sympathy. Michael put a hand on my shoulder. "Don't say anything yet. Let's get you out of here." But I turned to face the cameras. "Just for a moment. I want to make one thing clear," I said. I'm not a victim. I'm a CEO who discovered that people she trusted were stealing from her company and plotting her murder. The evidence speaks for itself. That's all I have to say. Michael guided me through the crowd. Behind us, I heard Patricia's voice, shrill and desperate. This is a misunderstanding. Emily has twisted everything. She's always been manipulative. No one was listening to her anymore. We got to Michael's car. I sat in the passenger seat, and for the first time in 4 weeks, I started crying. Not sad tears, angry tears, relieved tears. Tears that had been building behind a dam of survival and fury. It's not over, Michael said gently. The criminal investigation will take months. The Hayes family will fight back. This is going to get messier before it gets cleaner. I know, I said. But now everyone knows the truth. They can't make me disappear quietly. He nodded. That's the important part. You're visible now, protected by scrutiny. The criminal investigation moved fast once it started. Federal prosecutors took over the embezzlement case. The DA filed attempted murder charges against David Hayes, conspiracy charges against Patricia and Mr. Hayes and Scarlett Jones. All four were arrested within a week. The media had a field day. CEO's husband plotted murder for insurance money. In-laws tried to institutionalize victim. Thorn Group scandal, millions embezzled by founder's son-in-law. My phone exploded with messages. Board members apologizing for doubting me, employees expressing support, business partners offering help. Jennifer from my design team sent me a text. I'm sorry I didn't speak up during the conference room thing. I should have known better. You've always been professional and clear-headed. I won't doubt you again. I appreciated that more than she knew. The trial was set for September. In the meantime, I had a company to rebuild. The embezzlement had hurt Thorn Group's cash flow, but not fatally. With the money frozen in David's accounts, we could recover most of it. I brought in an outside auditor to review every transaction from the past 3 years. I updated our financial controls. I personally reviewed every vendor contract. I also filed for divorce. Easiest decision I'd ever made. On June 15th, 3 months after the courthouse revelation, I visited my parents' grave for the first time since the accident. It was a quiet cemetery on the north side of town, with old oak trees and stone markers weathered by time. My parents were buried side by side, their names carved in simple granite. Thomas and Margaret Thorne, beloved parents, visionary builders. I sat on the grass between their headstones and told them everything. I almost lost it all, I said. The company you built, the house you left me, my life. But I didn't. I fought back, and I won. The wind rustled through the oak leaves. A cardinal landed on Dad's headstone, bright red against gray stone. I think you'd be proud of me, I whispered. Not because I'm CEO, because I didn't let anyone make me small. The cardinal chirped once, then flew away. I stayed there for another hour, just sitting, remembering, grieving what I'd lost and what I'd almost lost. Then I went home and got back to work. September arrived with golden leaves and crisp mornings. The trial was scheduled for September 12th. I'd been preparing for weeks, reviewing testimony with prosecutors, steeling myself to face David and his family in court. But 3 days before the trial, David's attorney contacted Michael with a plea deal offer. They want to plead guilty to embezzlement and fraud, Michael told me over the phone. In exchange, the attempted murder charges get reduced to reckless endangerment. David would get 8 to 12 years. His parents would get 5 years for conspiracy. Scarlett would get 3 years for fraud. And if they don't take the deal, they're looking at 25 to life for attempted murder. The prosecution's case is solid. What do you recommend? Honestly, take it. Trials are unpredictable. A plea deal guarantees they go to prison. You get your restitution. You get to move on without months of testimony and cross-examination. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to see them face the full weight of attempted murder charges, wanted to watch David squirm on the witness stand, wanted Patricia to hear in public exactly what her son had tried to do. But another part of me just wanted it over. "Tell them I accept," I said, "on one condition." "What's that?" "Full restitution of the embezzled funds plus damages, and a public statement acknowledging the crimes, no sealed records. The world needs to know what they did." Michael smiled. "I can work with that." The plea hearing was brief. David stood in an orange jumpsuit, hollow-eyed and diminished. Patricia wept. Mr. Hayes stared straight ahead. Scarlett looked furious. The judge accepted the plea. Sentencing was set for October. I didn't attend the sentencing hearing. Michael went on my behalf and called me afterward. "David got 10 years, he said. Patricia got 6. Mr. Hayes got 6. Scarlett got 4. Full restitution ordered, $9.7 million, plus $2 million in damages. The statement will be released to the press tomorrow." "Thank you," I said. "How are you doing, Emily?" "I'm okay. Actually, I'm better than okay." "Good. You deserve to be." 1 year later, I stood in my office at Thorn Group headquarters, a new building we'd designed and constructed using sustainable materials and innovative energy systems. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. My parents' photo sat on my desk in a simple silver frame. The company was thriving. We'd recovered the embezzled funds and used them to expand into 3 new markets. Revenue was up 47% from the previous year. Employee satisfaction was at an all-time high. I'd promoted Jennifer to lead designer. Tom was heading up our new residential division. We'd hired 12 new people, all vetted thoroughly. I'd also started a foundation in my parents' names, the Thomas and Margaret Thorne Foundation for Vulnerable Business Owners. We provided legal resources and financial literacy education to people at risk of fraud or exploitation. My personal life was quieter. I'd bought a small house on the east side of town, nothing like the mansion David and I had shared. Just 3 bedrooms, a garden I was learning to tend, and a cat I'd named Phoenix. I was dating someone, a literature professor named Dr. Rachel Kim, who I'd met at a fundraiser for the foundation. She was kind, funny, brilliant, and had absolutely no interest in my money or my company. "I like you because you're interesting," she'd said on our 3rd date. "And because you don't take any shit from anyone." I'd laughed. That's a recent development. The best developments usually are. I thought about that sometimes. How the worst thing that ever happened to me had forced me to become someone stronger, someone who wouldn't be manipulated or gaslight or made small. I didn't forgive David or his parents. Forgiveness wasn't required. But I also didn't spend my energy hating them. They were in prison. I was free. That was enough. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt like someone was trying to make you doubt your own reality, like you were being told you're crazy when you know something's wrong, I want you to know this. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Find allies who believe you. And don't let anyone make you smaller than you are just so they can feel bigger. And here's the other thing I learned. Silence isn't the same as peace. Sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is stand up and make noise. A lot of noise. If you've ever had to choose between being liked and being safe, type "I chose safety" in the comments. Or if you're still trying to figure out how to make that choice, type "I'm learning." Both are valid. Both take courage. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. And remember, you are not the villain in someone else's made-up story. You're the author of your own.